All right. So this is session 4, solving why, our why. Hey, I want to thank everybody for going through this with me, especially this far. During this process, it's awesome to get to hear each one of you guys, where you're at in life, where you came from, understanding your past. And so real quick, we're just going to review what exactly has gone on whenever it comes to this training. And so real quick, let's jump into the review. Building our system, mental, physical, and spiritual wise. Why mental health matters, why your physical health matters, your spiritual. We talked about the basics, one word answers, understanding our past, the backpack theory, understanding what's in our backpack, understanding how that affects us, understanding the more that we carry and the more we hold on to, the more that it's actually going to affect us. And then last week, we talked about disciplines. We talked about our habits. We talked about our time value index. We talked about our goals, and then ultimately giving ourselves grace, because at some point, we're all going to fail. It doesn't matter. You can do everything exactly the right way. You can go through your entire life. You can be the most ripped, the most disciplined, the most, accurate person, the most efficient person, and you're still going to run into failures. Like, it's just the way it goes, and you have to prepare yourself for that. So you have to be in a position to where you can extend yourself a little bit of grace, and you can't be hard on yourself all the time. Especially if you're a man, it's really easy to fall into this mindset of the fact that if I don't do everything perfect or everything doesn't work out, then I'm no good. And so today, that's what we're going to dig into, is letting go of all of this stuff that we've come from so that we can really move forward. But I'm going to ask a couple questions real quick and see what you guys have learned during this process. Because ultimately today, we want to pick a word and we want to stick to it. And at least over the next 12 months, we want to work and strive towards that word. I know a lot of people do New Year's resolutions, but really I would encourage you guys to consolidate your life or what your goal is down to a word. And then after we find that word, really look for that in everyday activities. And so we're going to talk about how we're going to do that here in a second. But during this process, who has or have you narrowed your word down? Have you reviewed that list and looked for a word? And if so, what is that word? Anybody want to share? What have you discovered in your backpack and why that item? What is one thing that you've discovered during this process that you're like, wow, that's there, and I don't know why it's there, and why am I holding on to that? It's good. Holding on to insignificance, that can be a huge burden. Anybody else, something they've discovered in their backpack during this process, or something they've held on to, they want to let go of? It's really good, dude. Understanding what serves you and what doesn't serve you, and then how to take those things in your backpack and then turn those into something positive, a lesson learned, not a failure, right? Which of the 3 MPS, so mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, have you changed the most, and why during this process? So whether that's exercise, whether that's diet, whether that's becoming more spiritual, whether that's journaling more, which of those 3 things in your life have you changed during this process, and why that thing? What habits have you stacked? Anybody stacking some habits in their life? Biggest thing that I've added in my life, I think I take like 12 supplements now in the morning. And if I miss those like one day, and I have a very like ritualistic way that I take them. And if I don't do that every day, like I can definitely feel a difference. I think it's interesting. You expect like, this massive shift whenever it comes to like taking vitamins or taking supplements or starting a morning routine. And a lot of times you don't notice a difference when you're adding it, but you notice a difference whenever it becomes absent. It's the same thing as like your morning routine. You don't notice that it really affects you until a couple days in a row you're not doing it. You're like, what's off? And then you revisit it, and it's normally whatever that ritual or routine is. It's really good. Has anybody visited their TVI? Has anybody looked at that and said, what are the top 5 things on my time value index? It's good. It's crazy whenever you do that and you start going through and you start stacking. You're like, I think these are the most important things. And then you start looking at the actual time you apply to those things, how a lot of times they don't measure up. And so like you're wanting to get here, but you think mentally, I want to go to this place, but all of your time is concentrating you going this direction. What is your primary current goal? Has anybody thought through that whenever it comes to those SMART goals? Has anybody gone through those SMART goals and been like, what's a really big goal that I want to achieve? We're going into a new year, right? Like maybe there's a big goal you want to achieve next year that seemed previously like it was just out in the distance. But now that you are applying yourself through using the SMART goal techniques, is there something that you've actually set that now becomes more real? That pretty is a big deal. Not to mention like all the steps though, like being able to visualize it, saying, well, where am I going to put my money? Like a lot of times I can tell you, myself, other people, like you see it and like you end up making more money, but you just end up spending more money, right? Like you don't put that money to work for you. You just end up making more money, which you end up making more mistakes typically with more money if you don't have a purpose for it. So that's awesome. Getting debt free. What is the biggest loss that you've had? And why would you consider that a loss? Currently or just during this process? That's good. It's a loss of friends, right? It's a loss of, I call it the 5x5 multiplier. It's your 5 closest friends, and then who are the 5 closest people to those people. So there's 25 people that you are influenced by directly. You could go and multiply that out, but typically those are the people that are going to affect you the most. And what those people are doing is who you will become just by osmosis, because that's how we're created. Whenever you're first going through that process of shedding off those people, it can feel like a loss, right? And it is a loss, and it's something that you should recognize. But that loss will then turn into a win as you start reevaluating who the 5 people are that are pouring into you. So that's really good. What is the biggest win that you've had during this process, and why that item? Yeah, recognizing like the way to communicate, recognizing the process, and learning how to journal, and learning how to just slow down and understand situational awareness whenever it comes to how you bring things up, whether it be to loved ones, whether it be in business. The massive thing. And the more that you journal, the more that you learn to stop yourself consciously and engage in those thoughts, but then put them in a written form, the more that you'll be able to remove your emotion, you'll be able to make very concise decisions, which it doesn't just help you, it helps everybody. That's really good. Are you letting go of who you thought you were? Like, are you going through this process and you're going, wow, I thought that I was this person. I thought this is what my purpose was. I thought this is where I was going. I thought that big ego that we have built up that's based off of a lot of insecurities. And this is rhetorical, by the way. This just is a question. Are you letting go? And if you're not letting go, why or why not? Today, we're going to let go. So your why, writing out our why, taking all the things we have learned and writing out what our why is. This can be as short as a sentence, as long as a paragraph. How you describe this is up to you. So today we're going to be writing this out. Okay, this is a great practice. Sharing our why. After we write out our why, and after we write out some things we want to let go of, we're going to share it with other people. During the mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, we talked about those 4 different levels of transparency, right? First you journal, then you go read, and then the third step on that is transparent conversation, or talking to people about what you're going through. It creates oxytocin. It bonds you with other people. And so you're all going to get an opportunity to basically stand up and talk about what you've gone through and what you've let go of. So we're going to take a minute, share what you've written to the others around you. By saying these things out loud and being transparent, you will allow yourself the space to make it real. And then you're also going to create accountability for yourself. And then the third step is letting go. A lot of times we're good at saying things. A lot of times we're really good at recognizing things, but are you truly letting it go? It's easy just to move forward without really letting go of where we're at. This process can take a long time, but really choosing to let go of the big false narratives allows us to move forward with confidence. So we're actually going to do an exercise today that is going to be letting go of some of those false things that we've told ourselves so that we can step forward in confidence. So this is what the exercise is. We're going to take 10 minutes to do this. Now, I understand some people might be on a time constraint today. So if they have to go early or something to that effect, completely understand. So try to honor everybody and get through this in the most timely manner as possible. But this is what I want you guys to write out. It's 3 simple steps. Keep it simple, just like this entire process, okay? So number 1, I want you to pick a word. I don't care if you haven't figured out what that word is from that 8-question list. I want you to just pick one right now. Go with a gut instinct and pick a word. Find a word that has been coming to you during this training. My word is hope. I told you guys that, right? My why is hope. I share stories of seemingly insurmountable circumstances in my own life to allow Christ's light to shine through all my imperfections, to let anybody know, regardless of where they're at, there's always hope. Okay? The opposite of that. So, past, write out a short explanation of what false narrative you had with that word in the past on 1 page. So if my word was hope, the opposite of that was hopelessness. So typically, whenever it comes to your word, whenever it comes to your why, there's going to be something in your closet that is the opposite of that. So mine was hopeless. Very young age, 5 years old. For some reason, I heard if you're not perfect, you're never going to measure up. So what did I do? I gave up on Adam. I gave up on his purpose from a very young age. And I went through life and I tried to project this image of perfection. I tried to always make it seem like I had it together. I always made my life sound better than what it was. I was hopeless, right? I never gave myself a chance. But then I had a point in my life to where on another page, really concentrate on writing out what you feel your calling is in relation to your why. Keep it simple. And if that's just, hey, you know what? It's discipline. And I want to share discipline by going, and I'm going to be the most disciplined person possible so that other people know that even if their life is a complete chaos, they can be disciplined. If it's purpose, hey, you know what? I'm going to go through life and I'm going to live with such intentionality whenever it comes to purpose that it's going to inspire other people. Does this make sense? Number one, pick a word. Number two, what false narrative have you had in the past in relation to that word? Number three, write out what you're going to do in the future with that word in a positive way to impact other people. Take about 5 to 10 minutes. Go ahead and write it out. All right. Let's go through the instructions of sharing. Share the word that you found in the group. 2, share why you picked that word. 3, share the past false narrative you had related to that word. 4, share why and how you plan to use it to help achieve your higher purpose in life. And 5, smile. You did a lot of hard work. So I'm going to hand each one of you guys this microphone as you get up. I'm going to record this for you. I'm going to chop it and I'm going to send it to you. I won't share this with anybody. This is just for y'all so that you can go back and reflect on this and you can look at it to remind yourself of what you're promising yourself. Okay. So take your time. If you get emotional during it, it's fine. Be as transparent as you want to. And who wants to go first?
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the class.
My word is leader. If I have to narrow down to one word, I really like servant leader better. Carries more purpose and intentionality, but one word will keep it simple. My past, I always knew that I was meant for something more, but because of my trauma, I ended up trying to answer it in my own way without the proper guidance or submission. I let the opposite of my purpose, feeling insignificant, drive my choices and actions. I pursued the material in an attempt to fill the void instead of embracing my calling. I let fear, ego, and pride control my impact on the world. And then writing out my why is I'm called to be a servant leader, someone who is selfless. By being transparent and honest with the world, I no longer have to hold to a false sense of identity and compensate for where I feel lacking. I know that it's about the journey, not the destination.
Good. Yes, one. Good job. Let's go next.
My word that I picked was perseverance, obviously. Opposite of the perseverance, procrastination, or giving up. Letting myself feel inadequate when I didn't reach my goals or couldn't deliver. Inspire perseverance to create a positive outlook to show you can do anything you set your mind to. Plan to use perseverance, probably just share experiences, how I overcame obstacles or how I built myself up into the person I am today. I think sharing my experiences with everybody and giving them feedback on what they could possibly do can help achieve higher purpose in life.
So one, my word, I have come to find out, is purpose. And I picked that specific word because I felt growing up, and I was told multiple times growing up, I never had a purpose. My life had no purpose. And that stemmed from my father at a young age, instilling words into my life that were false, telling me I had no purpose. You're just made because me and your mom hooked up and that made you. And so I felt growing up in life, I never really had a purpose. And so I have come to find out that my why is to provide purpose to those I come in contact with, to help them understand why having a purpose helps them and why it helps them achieve personal and spiritual goals. As I've learned over the last several months, digging into that for myself. And then the final one would be to help others find their purpose in life. So that way they could find the clarity that I have found. And so that way they can use that clarity to clarify and understand their life.
My word, similar to Grove's actually. My word was actually leadership. So that's kind of what the first thing I wrote was becoming the man that I want to be through leadership. I've come to the realization of how many people look up to me, whether it's my family members, like my brother, my girlfriend, or her family, my mom, my friends, or my coworkers. And my actions have a trickle effect. I know that holding myself to a standard and a discipline will naturally want people to follow me. Leading myself to this standard will equal helping lead others to an even higher standard. So again, the word is leadership. On the past narrative I had on this was leadership equals dictatorship. And it's funny because, so I was throughout high school, I was a 4-year captain. I was the freshman captain on my college football team. And of course, I was a defensive coordinator for both a little league and a middle school team. And so I knew I always reflected leadership with like my athletic career or sports or anything like that, because you can see the leadership in that. But any and all careers up until this point, really, any and all jobs I've had, I always saw that my leaders never really invested into me, but more so were worried about, I'm talking from jobs since I was like 16 on, right? Of more so being around the idea of not really caring about me as an individual, but instead just, again, leadership equals dictatorship. And very rarely did I have managers actually want me to succeed, but more worried about my productivity or anything like that. Never thought that anyone, including myself, could ever lead in an actual environment such as this, but instead dictate with no empathy. So that was a false narrative I had. How I plan on achieving this, that's what I said in the first little bit, right? Leading myself and holding myself to this higher standard to try to help others follow along in that way.
My word's serve. I grew up with very self-centered parents. It was always kind of a figure it out instead of them actually helping me. I was blessed with their financials. That's really the only way that they knew how to support me or help me. And I would always stay with other people, just escape from them and get away. And that's led me down high school. I was drinking all the time, really staying probably at friends' house 4 days of the week and at my parents' 3. And it felt like really the only way that they could help me was financially. And I spent a lot of time helping or asking for help from other people, even in college. And I wouldn't really be here today if it wasn't for all those people. I plan to use it for a higher purpose in my life, is just to serve others. I've been blessed by more people than I could count, and with their help that I've achieved everything this far. I feel like it's my calling to church.
My word is servantship, servanthood. The reason I picked this word is because I believe that you lead through servantship, just like Jesus was a leader, but he led through serving others. He led by being the change in people's lives and so forth like that. The past false narrative would be that I'm not worthy to lead / serve others because my past disqualifies me and my self-worth disqualified me. How I plan to achieve the higher purpose is just not so much being a verbal change maker in people's lives as much as being someone that takes action and serving and letting my actions speak through versus always just relying on my words and what I have to say.
Wow. My word is going to be discipline. And I chose discipline because there's been a lot of times in my life where I haven't been disciplined. And the false narrative I have with that is that if you're not disciplined, you're not perfect. So you got to be perfect to be disciplined, or you're not disciplined, you're not perfect. Anyway, I feel like you could be disciplined and still not be perfect, getting up and trying again. So a lot of times in my life where I just gave up and I wasn't very disciplined. So I planned on inspiring the youth to be disciplined in everything they do, but that doesn't mean you're perfect. Just get up and try again. So
How did that feel? Standing up in front of everybody, getting a little bit of vulnerable, sharing some things that you've gone through. Did that feel good? Was that weird? No. Right. All right. It can be, if you're not used to being vulnerable and you're not used to like sharing those things that you've gone through and you're not used talking about those things with other people, it can be that way. I'll tell you right now, whether it's women, whether it's men, we're not trained in society to share our imperfections. We're trained right now, especially to give everybody the highlight reel. We have it all together. We're all perfect. We know what our purpose is. And our purpose a lot of times is material. It's so far outside of ourselves that we very rarely look within. But yeah, you fake it till you make it, right? And so now that we've done that, we're going to do something very special that I have found in my life to be very therapeutic. We're all going to take a piece of paper and we are going to write out something. So we're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to write out one thing that you fear the most in this life based off your past narrative. So if it's, I'm terrified that I'm never going to be enough. If I'm terrified that I'm not going to be a good father. I'm terrified of the fact that I'm going to be abandoned. I'm terrified of the fact that nobody's ever going to accept me. Right? I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to write that down. Allow yourself to feel all of it. The emotion, the anger, the burden, the insecurity, the lies, the escape. Maybe it's something that you don't feel like you can overcome. Maybe you're addicted to something. Maybe you're addicted to a drug. Maybe you're addicted to escaping in some manner. But I want you to write it down, and I want you to just sit there, and as you write it, I want you to visualize that fear. There's an exercise that is done on the Tools by Phil Stutz, where he talks about this process of whenever you have it, something that seems completely insurmountable in your life, you imagine it like a cloud in front of you. And you stare at it in the face, and then you run at it head on as fast as you can until you break through the cloud. And as you're doing that, you think about what the worst possible outcome could be. And then all of a sudden you get on the other side of that visualization, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm still alive. So I want you guys to write that fear down. And then after we're done, we're going to take that piece of paper, we're going to light it on fire, and we're going to watch it slowly melt away. So real quick before we do this, I'll tell you guys, I have done this dozens of times in my life. I think the most impactful time was earlier this year when my mom passed away, and it was a long battle with cancer, and it was on the tail end of probably the hardest 2 years of my life. And I was having a conversation with my girlfriend, and I was just numb. I was like, I don't know how to feel. Like, I haven't cried. Like, I'm emotionless. Like, I don't even know what reality is. And I remember she was like, what is little Adam saying? What is little Adam telling you? And I sat down on my back patio, and through a lot of tears, I sat down and I wrote a letter to little Adam. And I wrote a letter about what it was like growing up with me. And I wrote down all the things that I did that weren't the best things. I wrote down the way that my mom loved me. I wrote down the way that my mom was proud of me. I wrote down the disappointments. I just wrote a letter, just letting him know that it's okay and that you're going to get through it, because I have gone through some shit in my life and it wasn't fun. But I remember writing that letter, and I remember sitting in front of my fire and just sitting there and just like imagining all that pain, like imagining all those times that I doubted myself, imagining all the hurt, and taking that piece of paper and then just praying over it and putting it in the fire just allowed me to just let go of it. And I've done this multiple times in your life. And I tell you guys, if you ever run into a hardship in your life and you're having a hard time letting go of it, this is an exercise that is used worldwide and has been used since ancient times to let go of things by taking that mental, physical anguish, turning it into a physical thing, and then just allowing it to pass by. So we're going to go outside. I got a little pot that we're going to go outside, and we're literally just going to light it on fire. And we're going to let it go away. To wrap up the session, however, applications and resources. Books to read, Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk. Super easy read. Great book. I would highly recommend it. Phil Knight's Shoe Dog. I don't know if y'all know a lot about Phil Knight, who is the creator of Nike, but he lost his son in a tragic scuba diving accident. And so he talks through, it's part of his book, and he talks through the entire story and talks about everything that he worked for and talks about all the hardships, all the ups and downs, the interaction with Michael Jordan, what that did. And it's just a really good book. If you want to read a book about someone that's overcome a lot of circumstances, I don't agree with everything the guy does under any circumstances, but it's a great book to just hear about someone's life story and how they could have given up multiple times and they chose to keep on going on. Jordan Peterson, Beyond Order. Jordan Peterson's one of my favorite authors. It's a really good book if you want to dig into human psychology and whenever it comes to why we have these narratives in our mind. It's really good. Podcast, Jay Shetty On Purpose, one of my favorite podcasts. You can find a lot of really good resources on there. And guys, I thank you. I thank each one of you for going through this process with me. I've gotten to know each one of you on a much deeper level. I think that everybody that has been a part of this has gotten to know each other and seen each other in a little bit of a different life. And I just want to encourage you, like going forward, don't just let this stuff go by the wayside. Don't just sit there and allow this to like, you feel it and then it's gone. Go back and revisit it. Go back and revisit the information. Go back and revisit those emotions. Continue to have those hard conversations. Continue to grow. Because this is a lifelong process. It's not like you just do the course and it's done. And then not just that, go find these tools and go find some way to make it better. That's why I do what I do every single day. It's because I want to inspire hope in other people. I want to see them become successful. I want to see them overcome challenges. I want to see them be the best version of themselves. I want to see them become the most successful, whatever their definition of success is. I want them to become. I want people to make more money than I have. I want people to drive nicer cars. Like, I want to see people become so successful. I think for a long time in my life, whenever it comes to scaling Mount Everest, there's two people involved. One's the climber, two's the Sherpa. The climber is the one in the picture. The Sherpa is the one that's not in the picture. For a long time, I wanted to be the climber. I wanted to be the guy planting the flag. Then I hit a point in my life where God was like, I don't need you to be the guy that's planting the flag. I need you to be the Sherpa. You're not going to get the same amount of recognition. You're not necessarily going to be in the starlight all the time, but that's what your purpose is. And it took a long time for me to learn that, but I don't know whether you're supposed to be the climber. And I think in some seasons you're supposed to be that. And in some seasons you're supposed to be in the Sherpa. So really analyzing what you're called to do, how you're called to lead. Because I know a couple of the guys in here talked about like their word being leadership. We're all called to lead. It's just lead with whatever your purpose is. Lead with whatever that word is. And if you wake up every single day and you live out that word, I promise you, you'll wake up excited to go conquer the day, regardless of what your circumstances are. So thanks for going through the course with me. Thanks for allowing me to live out my purpose and inspire hope in other people and share this with other people. Share the videos with other people. Do whatever, man. Like whatever. If you ever have a friend that's going through a hard time and needs someone to talk to and you're talking to him, give him my number. I'd love to talk to him. So thanks, guys. Love you.